How do these deepfake technologies manipulate audio and video content, and are there key indicators of a fake?
Well, the thing is, as the technologies evolved, I mean, at the early days of it, yeah, there were indicators. A lot of them were quite clearly fake. But as the technology's grown and people have identified what the problems are, they fixed them. So it used to be with video anyway, deepfake video, that you could tell it was deepfake because the faces would never blink. As soon as that was publicized, it was fixed. With there was other ones with images as well, where image generation ones, I don't know about now, but at least a year ago, you used to always have problems generating the earlobes. You know, this always used to be like a swirl of just pixels of some sort.
Yeah.
It's from what I've seen lately anyway, it's relatively fixed. So, and the problem is, if you, as in an academic sense, if you find a telltale sign and you publish a paper on it, guess what? It's fixed a month later.
You're listening to The AI Optimist with Declan Dunn.
Can you spot a fake? In this episode 22, The AI Optimist, Digital Forensics, a listening experiment you can play along with, and possible impacts on criminal justice are shared from Deepfake Masters audio research with Jason Rodgers. You're going to love this one. Hey, Jason, it's really good to get to meet you. Obviously, you work with some of my friends at Bite Size Bio, and I was really excited to taking a look at evaluating the threshold of authenticity in deepfake audio and its implications within criminal justice. How did you get started, especially on the criminal justice end, of looking into deepfakes for your master's?
Still not even sure where it came from, but I got this huge interest in deepfakes and the criminal justice bit. In fact, the bit that actually inspired this specific paper was that we had a class training, but I was talking to a sergeant in the digital forensics department, and I asked them, "Have you ever came across deepfakes or synthetic media, any AI generated stuff in there? Have you ever came across that when dealing with evidence?" And he said, "No, we haven't, but we're also not looking for it." And it was that last bit that caught me and was like, well, if you're not looking for it, do you actually know what you're looking for? It's not the first one of its kind. There have been other studies in it, but the difference I did with mine is that I changed up how the evidence is presented to you.
Can you discuss, I know in your research, there were some specific cases, we don't have to obviously name names, but where deepfakes have impacted criminal investigations, or whether something is real or not has impacted a court case?
So the biggest known example is this is a sealed case anyway because it's over child custody, but it was involving two parents, obviously, who were fighting for custody of their child. One was resident in Dubai and one was resident in the UK, and I believe it was the mother looked up online how to create deepfake audio, and she created deepfake audio of her husband or ex-husband, I don't know what he was in this point, of the father, and the deepfake audio painted the father in a very abusive and aggressive term, just an unsafe environment for a child, basically. That was then presented to the court as evidence of the father being unsuitable for custody. Luckily, they did find out that by authenticating it, looking at where it came from and things, that they did work out that it was fake.
And they were actually, just by doing research, what I was surprised is she was able to, for lack of a better word, show anger, aggressiveness. I mean, this is something somebody could just sort of do even in something maybe not like Descript, but another tool.
But what you can do in Descript is you can obviously train a voice model and it basically becomes text-to-speech. But what you can also do is train styles in there. So you can train emotions. So if I recorded my voice in there, for example, better way around, if I recorded your voice into it and created a voice of you as a text-to-speech voice, but like you mentioned, it may sound monotone or it may sound like it's not got any emotion in it, I can then record my voice and record emotions in there. I can put on a bit of a crying sound, or I can put on a really angry sound or a loud shouty one, and I can then highlight some good bit of text in mine, which has got this emotion really strong in it. And I can tell Descript to train that as a style, but to apply it to your voice. So you then speak in the way that I've recorded myself.
Hey, talk to me about the an interesting term you brought up, the liar's dividend, and how deepfakes can benefit both by, let's say in this case, a person actually using it for evidence, but also there were other cases where people could say, sort of like we are in American social media, fake news when we don't agree with it. Talk about the liar's dividend and sort of what's the origin of that?
So the liar's dividend was actually penned by two researchers from a university in America. I forget their names and which university they were from, but the whole crux of it is that it puts uncertainty into digital media, video, audio, etc. It's basically the fact that people know it exists, they'll be more skeptical towards things, but it's not in a good way. So the public, for example, will be unsure whether to trust it, or they're like, oh, I know deepfakes exist, so is that a deepfake? And then people who it concerns, say a politician or something, and there's a piece of audio that hurts their reputation for some reason. Because deepfakes exist and they know that the public knows they exist, they can turn around and go, but it's fake. So, I didn't say that. And then that sparks a whole other process of people going, well, we need to go and make sure this is real now. And then if they find out it is fake, then they can't trust any other data, any other media that comes out. If they find out it's real, it still has the effect that they can't trust every other bit of media because they know it's a real thing. And like anything else, that can be gamed and played by some people on trial as well, because they can then create fake evidence and clandestinely enter it into evidence from another party, have it proven as fake, and use that as a tool to sow uncertainty in all the other evidence against them. Kind of like if you have 3 videos and in court and then you find one of them is fake, you then immediately question the other 2. So it's a risky game, but you can do that as well.
Was the case that you referenced with this woman and her husband, was that actually found to be fake?
It was, yes. They looked at the metadata for the fake audio, and they found in there traces that pointed to it being generated.
How do these deepfake technologies manipulate audio and video content, and are there key indicators of a fake?
Well, the thing is, as the technologies evolved, I mean, at the early days of it, there were indicators. A lot of them were quite clearly fake. But as the technology's grown and people have identified what the problems are, they fixed them. So it used to be with video anyway, deepfake video, that you could tell it was deepfake because the faces would never blink. As soon as that was publicized, it was fixed. There was other ones with images as well, where image generation ones, I don't know about now, but at least a year ago, they used to always have problems generating the earlobes. This always used to be like a swirl of just pixels of some sort. It's from what I've seen lately anyway, it's relatively fixed. So, and the problem is, if you, as in an academic sense, if you find a telltale sign and you publish a paper on it, guess what? It's fixed a month later.
Having to think about data being manipulated, and the fact that the tools that we have, even though all these platforms are saying no AI, or at least reveal that you're doing AI, but they really can't detect it reliably in anything yet that exists. So how is the forensic community adapting to the rapid evolution of deepfake technology?
Because there's so many AI-powered tools coming out that are designed to detect AI manipulation or AI generation. But to a degree, in court, if you try to say, when a lawyer asks you, how can you, as the expert witness, how can you tell that that was fake? And if you go, I used an AI tool and it told me it was fake, the next thing they're going to ask you is, how do you know that tool was accurate? And the thing is, all these tools, they're proprietary property made by the developers. they're not going to tell you what their secret is. They're not going to tell you how it works. So the research that I'm working on now is I'm trying to develop a manual framework for authenticating these. And it goes beyond listening to it. You need to go beyond metadata. You need to look for loads of other things. I'm leaning towards audio because it's my specialty. Although I'm sure there will be some ways to adapt it to images and video at some point, I'm sure.
That's actually an incredibly, boy, I feel like this is going to be a how-to for the other side because we can't track you and here are some things to do. And well, that's not our intention. It's really interesting to think, especially on the forensic end, when I was looking at your research, this really brought something home to me. In fact, give me just a second here. So let's do a little test. I'll put myself on the spot since I haven't seen it. And for those listening, you can take a listen to this and to look at some of Jason's research as well, because it's really I thank you so much for sharing this. I'm going to actually do a couple of tests and give us a little context for what we're looking at here. I'm just going to test 1 and 2. How are you setting this up and how is this part of your research and who was evaluating the research before I jump in?
So this research is, it's 10 questions. And in each question, you have 3 audio files. And the point of it is to listen to all 3 audio files in each question and then mark which ones you think are fake. So each question, it could be that all 3 of them are real. It could be that 1 is real and 2 are fake, 2 are real or 1 is fake, or all 3 could be fake. You don't know. And each question has a different theme around it. So the first 2 questions are just clear speech. And then every question afterwards changes. There's one that's got a telephone filter. There's one that's got street noise with cars going past and everything. There's another one that's supposed to emulate somebody speaking through a megaphone. Excuse me. Another one where people are really heavily compressed with their audio, so it sounds really loud and really distorted. And there's other ones that combine those effects as well. So I would suggest testing 1 and maybe 3 because 1 and 2 are both clear speech.
Cool. Now, who was listening though? Because you also had regular people like myself, but there were also people you tested who were forensic community. I mean, how would we word that? Somebody who's actually a pro?
That's right. Yeah. So I had 3 copies of the same test set up, and one copy, which is the one we're looking at right now, doesn't record any results. The only reason that's there is because all the volunteers that let me record their voice, they wanted to do the test and they wanted to have their friends do the test. But because they're familiar with the voice, they have a bias against it. They're more likely to know if it's fake. Also, I got my friends to listen to it as well, and I'm one of the voices. So again, bias there. The second copy was for the general public, just anybody that wanted to have a go, unless you fell into test 3. Test 3 was for people that worked either in audio or people that worked in forensics, or both. So, and each of them recorded the results to a different results pool. But the tests were exactly identical. There was no difference in the tests. It was just to segregate the results.
Nice. No, and this is what makes it so interesting. I really want to encourage folks after this. I've got links to share this information. So spoiler alert, we're about to go through this and I'm going to do 1 and 3. I'll do 1, guess it. You tell me what's real. And I'll do 3 because that I think will be a great example of the background noise. So let me test 1A.
Prosecutors have opened a massive investigation into allegations of fixing games and illegal betting.
Now, it's interesting, being American, I'm not as we are so isolated, but it'd be interesting how my bias isn't in there because most of the things I've seen are on TV. So let's test 1B.
Yeah, you are going to
Prosecutors have opened a massive investigation into allegations of fixing games and illegal betting.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was saying, sorry, you are going to get a lot of Scottish voices there and a couple of English ones.
Cool. All right. And I'm going to test 1C now.
Prosecutors have opened a massive investigation into allegations of fixing games and illegal betting.
I would guess A and B are fake and C is real. How did I do?
All 3 of them are fake.
Interesting.
I went hard with the first question. All 3 of them are fake.
what was funny is there was just much more of what I would consider a natural tone. And were you finding a lot of people would, there's must have been a lot of bias that came into looking at this when they were listening to different things. Just inherently, we all are biased.
Yeah, there's a little bit. Especially, I had a couple of friends who, I'm at my normal workstation. Right behind me, I have a sofa bed, and they were sat on that couch listening to them. And they were sitting discussing between themselves and going, I know she doesn't speak like that. I know this person normally pronounces their word like this. I know that you usually hear the T sound more through this one. And yeah, they were getting really into it, and their bias was coming out really strongly.
We're going to figure out which ones are fake and which ones are not. And I was totally wrong on the first one. So let's try number 2.
You can eat them fresh, cooked, or fermented.
You can eat them fresh, cooked, or fermented.
Now, it's interesting. When I'm listening to that, that sounds a lot more professional, clear.
You can eat them fresh, cooked, or fermented.
And that's my friend Ken. So I'm going to guess Ken is real, test 3C, Ken Vogt to Bite Size Bio, and I'm guessing 3C is correct. I thought 3A was fake. And 3B, I'm sort of on. I'll flip a coin and say 3B is fake too. What was my results?
So 3A is fake, yes. 3B is real. And 3C is also real. And that one sounds clearer because I believe that one's the one with the telephone filter on it.
Interesting. And it's funny because that actually, and that was a really cool example because it showed my own bias that I have towards knowing Ken and feeling like I noticed when I listen to him, you get really, it's amazing our auditory capabilities. My brain's like, oh, I know him. And I know what he sounds like.
Yeah, so what's interesting is I've worked with Ken for years as well, and I speak to him really regularly. And I thought, because without sounding anything against other countries or anything, I thought because Descript was built in America, probably trained on a lot of American voices as its main training pool, and with Ken being from America as well, I thought, oh, this is going to come out brilliant. And I couldn't get his to work. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get Ken's one to work. So I just had a lot of issues with it. So what was also interesting, though, is when Ken tried the test and he heard his own files, he said, I know mines are fake because I didn't say those things. And yet they were real files for him.
I bet testing against yourself is the hardest thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't stand editing myself and listening to my own voice, which is pretty universal. So there's like everybody has pretty much a negative bias against their own voice. Wow. So what's interesting is then it's probably logically easier to create a fake for someone else's voice that actually doing your own would be probably a little bit harder just from what you're approaching.
It is, yeah. Certainly my voice was one of the ones I obsessed over quite a lot. So when I first started testing the script to see if it was going to work for my dissertation, I used my own voice because I'm here. I have control over my availability. So I did it and used it to test it. But what I then did, because I thought all my stuff was okay, but after getting everyone else's voices recorded and generating the rest of all this audio there, I, by comparison, was like, mine's is rubbish. And I went back and redid all mine. And then I sat there not doing any major editing to it. You can do that, but I wasn't doing it. I was just taking out like pauses and things and just smushing together some words so there was less pauses and things in them.
Yeah.
But that was the only one I did with.
Well, tell you what, since we talked about Martin Lewis earlier, this might be a good time to actually see if we can. I have the recording here. This is on YouTube, and I'm just going to prepare 10 seconds for people. Take a listen, if we can, and take a look at what's here.
Elon Musk presented his new project in which he has already invested more than $3 billion. Musk's new project opens up great investment opportunities for British citizens.
Wow. I can see why they would be really, really, really upset at what was going on there. In fact, let me share the screen so we can take a look. But that looked obviously so real, and the way they did the banners and things on top. How can you look at this and tell the difference between them?
It's hard for a start. So you first thing you would do is start looking at your kind of facial features. You know, are the cheekbones right? Is the chin line the same? Are the eyes the same kind of distance apart and things like that? What you also find with video, or so that I find anyway, is that usually they are dead face on to the camera. They don't turn away at all, because as soon as they turn away, it starts to have very noticeable effects around the sides of the face, especially when the ears get involved.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time you don't see them move very much, or you see them, again, not looking away from the camera, not even turning their head. One thing I would note to start with, but I would also be wary of there, is that it's obviously a bit lower quality. So in the day of age now, where everyone's got quite high quality cameras and things, you don't necessarily expect to see, like his on the left there, which is the fake one, Martin's forehead is awfully smooth, as opposed to the one on the right that's got all the extra wrinkles. I mean, on the right as well, he is raising his eyebrows, which creates more wrinkles. But even when you go down his cheeks, down his under his eyes and his jawline and things, like it's quite smooth, which is an artifact from early deepfake technologies that is again getting better. But again, you need to be wary of the fact that it could just be he's using an older webcam. It could be that. So whenever you do these things, you have to say, well, these are the things I've detected, but these are also the real reasons why it could also be like that. So you're actually not so much a yes, this is fake, yes, this is real. You're actually more of a pros and cons kind of thing.
Because it could be a lot of reasons why it's that way. Because it's funny, I was looking at a television commercial last night for Google's new mobile phone. And so the group of 20-somethings take a picture, and two of them are like this. And then when the picture stops, their eyes are adjusted, that the filter is built in so that everyone's eyes make contact with the camera using the same thing. So it's funny because it's almost like we talk about deep fakes, but everybody, if you've ever been on Instagram, is there anything real there? Can you discuss the challenges in differentiating between like authentic, let's go on the audio end, authentic audio and those generated by deepfake technology?
So first of all, you'd be thinking of the frequency range. Like, have they got the full range of their voice in there? Because there's some models that don't give out the full frequency range. Mm-hmm. If you look at a spectrogram as well, which is a 3D picture of audio, there's sometimes markers in there that are maybe the higher frequencies that you struggle to hear. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, although humans hear up to 20,000 hertz, that's when you're born. By the time you're, 20, 30, probably lucky if you're hearing 17,000, 18,000 hertz. And by the time that you're retired, even lower than that. And it's nothing to do with your exposure to sound or anything. It's just your ear aging and the hairs in your ear just folding down. So sometimes there's markers in there that may have been put there by the software to tell, like as a watermark. Sorry. That's one thing. You can also listen for their pacing, for their cadences. I know with my accent, normally I have a tendency not to pronounce T's. So for button, for example, instead of saying button, I say button. And that's the same with quite a lot of sounds. So, the person's from Scotland, that's a very typical thing in Scotland. So if they're suddenly pronouncing T's and very, very properly pronouncing their words, that could be a sign. Could be. I'm not saying it is, because there are people in here that do that as well. But again, it's one thing you could listen to, although then you start getting into the realm of speech forensics. And if you're doing it in criminal justice, you try, and you're an audio person, you have to not stray too far into that because it's a different field. But things like that, pacing, cadence, also if they're monotone, a lot of them have a tendency to generate monotone audio. So like you said right at the start, not a lot of emotion or anything like that. So sometimes if it's kind of bland, it's kind of a giveaway. But again, they're getting better and better, so it's making it harder to detect that.
You brought up watermarks. There is, and I know Adobe's involved, some other big tech companies called the, if I pronounce it right, the Coalition for content provenance and authenticity's a watermark proposal. How are they actually putting a quote watermark? Is it in the metadata, or how do they get that in there?
What I understand with it is that it's essentially giving this file a passport. So, as you with your real life passport, as you travel to a different country, you get a stamp to say you've been here. You've got a stamp to say you've been in Germany, a stamp to say you've been in the US, one for the UK, blah, 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 blah. I understand it is that the idea as, in Adobe's example, when the camera takes this image and generates the file at its origin, it will get given this all its metadata and this little passport, which is attached to the file, embedded in the file somehow. And then as it's transferred from the camera to the PC of the editor, it will get like a stamp to say it was on this PC. It will then get a stamp to say it was put through Photoshop or whatever editing software, if it's meeting the standards for the coalition. And basically, the idea of it is that when it's been through 76 different other people and it's been reposted on Facebook for the 60 millionth time, that you'll still be able to say, yes, it was James Alexander who took this photo on the 2003 on this beach somewhere. You'll be able to trace it back to that and see what happened as well along there. And it's crazy the ways that they're doing it, because there was one paper that I referenced in my dissertation. One of the, again, another university in America, I think it's California, they actually reverse engineered, what's the word? Fluid dynamics. And what they did was adapt it so that they would feed it the audio file that they think is deepfake, and it would generate the shape of the throat that would speak, because your throat makes all sorts of weird funky shapes and sizes and things when you form words. And they found that with all the deepfake ones that they tested, I think it was all anyway, it was quite a large proportion at least, they found that they would make laughably inaccurate shapes, shapes and sizes that were anatomically impossible for a human, I believe is the right words that they said. So, that's not listening to it. That's not having an AI thing tell you it. That's modeling how air would flow through a shape and what shape it should have came through. So your audio in the end product is only going to be just a slightly better version of that. And the reason I'm saying this is because your generative AI is exactly the same. If you feed it rubbish audio or rubbish video, you're going to get poor quality at the end. One of the voices I made, I actually recorded them in the Bite Size Bio office, which has a lot of natural echo and a lot of natural reverb. And I tried to remove some of it. I removed quite a bit of it before I actually fed it in to make the voice model. But I couldn't get it all out without damaging her voice. And her voice model in AI actually has natural reverb in it. So that is the proof of you get out what you give it. If you feed it something like that, you'll get that product back out of it.
It is. It's always been garbage in, garbage out.
The AI Optimist.
My name's Declan, and I'm done. See you next time.